Scrolling with Haley.
I am Haley Carania. I scroll with the homies here in the live chat because there's a lot to scroll through on X, on Instagram, on TikTok.
Cutting through the clutter, one hot take at a time.
Love seeing you all in the chat before the show. I tried to jump in just a few minutes before to say hello. I love the chat interaction. Thank you for helping. But I do it to get all of the videos and all of the content that you won't find anywhere else.
Scrolling with Haley.
Just search that up and I will be there.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
This Jocks 94.5 podcast is brought to you by Millennium Satellite and Video. Log on to msbnow.com. TV excellence everywhere. That's Millennium. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning starts now.
Welcome back, McElroy Cubelic in the morning on Jocks 94.5. It is 9 a.m. here in Birmingham, Alabama. I hope everybody's Tuesday is off to a terrific start. As you guys know, it's 7 seeded days. 7 seed. But it's okay. You know, it's okay. Still a lot to talk about, still a lot to be excited about, still a lot going on here in the college football world. And we are just, 4 work days away from SEC Media Days getting underway. And that, as you guys know, in this part of the world, is the unofficial start to the season. I know I'm looking forward to it. I hope you're looking forward to it. And we also have ACC Media Days. We had Big 12 last week. We have Big 10 coming up here very soon. We have a lot to look forward to here over the next couple weeks. Also, I always look forward to the deals I can get at Bromberg's. The Bromberg's is just a terrific place to go. They've been serving this community for 190 years. I'm so grateful to the experience I get every single time I walk in the door and visit with the incredible pros at Bromberg's. They do an amazing job. You walk in, you can buy that natural diamond. The natural diamond's off the charts good. You do an incredible job with that. That natural diamond started its journey to you 3 billion years ago, 100 miles deep within the Earth's surface. And now that natural diamond is finding its way to Bromberg's in Mountain Brook or at the summit, could find its way onto your finger. It also could find its way onto a necklace, a bracelet, you name it. They have it for gifts of all prices, for gifts of all ranges, and a gift that could potentially live in your family for multiple generations. So go and check them out, Bromberg's in Mountain Brook or at the summit. You can also shop online at brombergs.com. All right, he's Andy Bitter. He is the lead football beat writer for Tech Sideline. He covers Virginia Tech, and I think they're one of the most interesting teams in the country this year. I'm fascinated by what's going to happen because I thought for a long time, I thought Virginia Tech was going to get going in the right direction. It's now been for multiple coaches where I felt like, all right, man, they're close. Brent Pry had a chance. Justin Fuente had a chance. And now it's James Franklin. It feels like things are in overdrive. So, Andy, how are you this morning? Thanks for the time.
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Super bullish on Virginia Tech this year. Partly because of the league they play in, but just kind of the buzz around the program, the energy that James Franklin's brought to the program. So just living there in Blacksburg, what's it been like on the ground as you prepare for this upcoming season?
Yeah, I think for the first time in a while, it feels like there's hope around here. I think that's the biggest thing that James Franklin brings. And he's somebody who has run successful football programs before and knows what they look for and knows where you have to invest in those programs. And last couple coaches, I don't know if that was necessarily the case. I don't necessarily know if they had the financial backing to do it anyway, even if they knew what they were looking for. Justin Fuente had run a program at Memphis, but never something quite as big as Virginia Tech. And Brent Pry had always been a coordinator, never been a head coach. And I think it showed during their times here. Franklin comes in and he's immediately rebuilding stuff within the facility. He's, pushing the recruiting side of things more than anybody's ever done it before. He knows where to put this. There was this $230 million influx of cash from the university side coming in to help athletics. He knows where he wants all that money to go. He just feels like he's a head coach. And, for a program that was 3-9 last year, that sort of has been in the wilderness here for the last decade and a half, basically. Having somebody that knows what he's doing as a head coach, I think, is a big plus. And, I can't imagine them going 3-9 again. I think those days are over.
It's very hard to envision a season like that, especially with the personnel they brought in. But as far as this year's team, got a bunch of guys that were at Penn State, a bunch of guys via the portal. How do you feel right now about the personnel that'll be taking the field this season?
Yeah, I think there are definitely some upgrades. I think you look at quarterback specifically with Ethan Grunkmeyer, just the passing side of things. The ball comes out quicker. It's more accurate than it was before. And I think that brings the receivers into the game a bit more. And you add somebody like Quayshawn Brown from Duke, who is, all ACC caliber receiver coming in to join Aiden Green. Luke Reynolds at tight end. I think that's a very strong passing combination that they have there. And then some offensive line pieces that was a big question mark last year was the offensive line. They have to get that going. So some big guys at tackle that I think will help out. I think it will be an improved offense this year. Defense, I think it should be better than it was last year. I think there are a little more question marks actually on the defensive side. Defensive tackle, one spot, linebackers. How are those guys going to play? But overall, I think they upgraded the talent of the roster to the point that they should be a bowl team, and perhaps could surprise some people and do a bit better.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they go bowling. Which visit with Andy Bitter at Andy Bitter VT on X if you want to follow him. He's got great coverage all over the place when it comes to Virginia Tech and in a larger part, kind of the ACC as a whole. So when you look at the ACC and the upward mobility that appears to exist, and frankly, I think James Franklin, with the personnel he can likely recruit, I think he can close that gap and to get into the tier 2 of the ACC probably immediately, probably pretty quickly. So how much of our bullishness on the Hokies is the result of the uncertainty that exists between, say, 2 and 17 in the ACC, assuming Miami's at 1?
Yeah, I think that's a big part, and I would imagine when he's taking a job, that enters his thinking, is going, well, I don't have to beat Ohio State and Michigan and these other top schools like in the Big Ten. It's kind of Miami now, and even Miami didn't win the conference last year. 5-loss Duke won the conference last year. So, that just tells you how wide open this thing is. And, if Clemson's not humming like it has in the past and Florida State still has its troubles, who are the other teams out there that you have to beat? Miami, SMU, the top ones this year, I would imagine. It's just a smaller group of teams at the top that you have to beat. Now, I don't think that means that they're ahead of those teams yet. And I think if you look at their schedule, they probably play 5 of the top teams in the ACC this year. The schedule is actually not that easy as they're going through it. So they're going to have a chance to prove themselves against the top talent in the league. And I think we'll get a good sense right away of how quickly James Franklin can get this team up to snuff and competing within this league.
Yeah, the schedule's not easy, that's for sure. I would agree with that. But I do wonder sometimes when a rival has a bit of a breakthrough year, a la Virginia did last year with 11 wins, playing in the ACC title game, nearly making the college football playoff. Had they won the ACC, they of course would have been in. How much of, and I'm always curious about this, the dynamics. I'll be the first to admit I have never called that rivalry game. I've never been a part of that rivalry game. Just watched from a distance and enjoyed it as a fan. But how often does a rival's success kind of supercharge the amount of energy that Virginia Tech is putting forth in their program as well?
Yeah, I think it does. And it's a rare feeling for Virginia Tech. Before this year, they had won, I think, 19 of 20 in the rivalry. It wasn't much of a rivalry. The one time they did, UVA won in 2019 in a pretty good game and ended up going to the ACC title game. And I believe got crushed by Clemson in that game. Anybody going to that one was going to get crushed by Clemson in that game. But I think that, led to some changes at Virginia Tech. They took that very personally. I think last year, especially they're coaching with an interim coach. They were 3-8 going into that game, and they stunk in that game. Virginia Tech, quite frankly, they did not play well. They were lucky to score at the end. And I think that has to hurt the pride of a school who, that's sort of their one trump card on UVA over the years has been football. They can't compete with all of UVA's other national championships and all that other stuff, but they've always been able to say, but in football, we beat you there. They didn't this year and didn't even come close. So I think that leads to some inward looking. At that point, they had already hired James Franklin, so I think Virginia Tech fans felt comfortable that this thing was turning around already at that point. But, have to go do it on the field. And, the delta between 11 wins for UVA last year and 3 for Virginia Tech is just incredible. I think that will shrink quite a bit this year. I don't think UVA will be quite as good, and I think Virginia Tech will be improved. But are those two trajectories going to cross this year? I don't know, but I think it'll be a much more competitive game, and definitely Hokies fans will have a lot riding on that one at the end of the season.
Visiting with Andy Bitter, who is the lead football beat writer for Tech Sideline. When you look at the ACC as a whole, and you look kind of where Virginia Tech had success a while back under Frank Beamer, granted, different league, a lot of things that are unique and different back then. But what was it that Frank Beamer did so well that led to so much success in the early 2000s, really throughout the 2000s and the late 90s and things like that? What was it that he was able to do?
A lot of things. I mean, first of all, he had players. I mean, we can't sit here and
that
act
helps.
like he did this.
A guy named Mike Vick helps. Yes, that is true.
Yeah, Mike Vick, Tyrod Taylor. But even beyond those guys, they've developed a lot of really good guys. Like everybody today knows Cam Chancellor as, the hard-hitting safety for the Seahawks, like this huge archetype, safety in the NFL. He was a 2-star quarterback when he got to Virginia Tech, and they turned him into, the hard-hitting safety that went on to have an incredible NFL career. Dwayne Brown played for 20 years in the NFL. He was a tight end when he got here. So I mean, they really knew how to develop. They had guys that they could figure out that fit into their system. Helps to have Bud Foster as a generational defensive coordinator. You knew that side of the ball was always going to be great. Frank was ahead of his time in special teams, and they always had an advantage on that side. And then I think, just him as a head coach, he was very even-keeled coach. When things were bad, he was fine. When things were good, he wasn't too high on that stuff. And I think that filtered down to his team. And, perhaps taking advantage of an ACC where Florida State was on the decline and Clemson wasn't quite Clemson at that point. But, they went out there and they won close games, and they weren't rattled in those kind of contests. And, there is a path for a team like that to succeed. Now, are they going to succeed if you're up against, hitting on all cylinders, Ohio State or Alabama or these programs that can just, blow you away with sheer talent? Maybe not, but they found a way to do it at a time when the opportunity was there. And, the ACC right now, I don't think Miami's at the top, but I don't know if they're unbeatable at this point, and certainly have proven to be beatable in the past. So I think Virginia Tech can get back there. They just need a little bit of time for Franklin to put the pieces in place.
One other question I'm curious about is a little bigger picture, Andy, and I don't know if you're wanting to answer it, capable of answering all that realignment talk that went down, in the ACC with Clemson and Florida State suing and Miami kind of sitting on the sideline. North Carolina, of course, always open other options. Like, what's the latest you've heard on teams in the ACC being happy with the status quo? Have those things kind of died down the last couple of years?
A little bit. We'll see. I think, realignment's happiness in your current lot is pretty much directly related to whether or not other conferences want you. At this point, I don't think the Big Ten and the SEC necessarily are offering invitations right now to other schools. So it's easy to say you're happy in your current situation if there's no offers out there. Get back to me in 2030 when some of these TV deals are up and they're renegotiating stuff. I still kind of wonder, are these schools that are still available, quote unquote available at the ACC and the Big 12, are they big enough of a TV draw to add to a Big 10 or an SEC TV package and make it worth it to add another team and split up the revenue even more? I mean, you have to bring in an incredible amount of money as that new addition for teams to continue to make more money on the previous TV deal. And I think Notre Dame would do that. I don't know if other schools would do that necessarily. So I think that kind of keeps the status quo a bit. But, it's sort of like a couple trying to make the marriage work, I think, in the ACC. And, they found this, uncomfortable but sort of comfortable détente, and they're happy to be around each other in the current situation. But, man, it feels like it's built on a house of sand still. And I think, one domino falls and this thing could just completely fall apart. Teams could disperse. But again, I don't think that happens for a couple of years if it happens at all.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Andy, terrific stuff. Really appreciate your time, and you can always check out Andy's stuff by checking him out on Twitter at Andy Bitter, Bittervt on X. Andy, appreciate the time, my friend. We'll do it again soon.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right, really interesting stuff there. I think one of the teams of the offseason, along with several others that had new coaching changes, there's a bunch that have been highly intriguing. But Virginia Tech probably one of the more intriguing teams in the country going into this year with what they added in James Franklin, what they bring down to Blacksburg, some of the talent that they had at Penn State that went with James Franklin to Blacksburg, and in a league that's seemingly gettable. And if you look at all the different teams that have won the championship in the ACC the last handful of years, there's a bunch. You know who hasn't won the ACC? Miami, which is wild when you think about how good that roster was last year. The fact that they missed out on the conference championship game, and to think that they are heavy favorites. I mean, I'm talking heavy favorites going into this year, but still very, very intriguing. All right, when we come back, we're going to dive a little deeper into the ACC. A lot of intriguing programs, a change to their schedule, give you some of the most recent updates as it relates to the Atlantic Coast Conference. And we'll do it next on Mac and Q.
Don't leave Jocks back at the house. Download the Jocks 94.5 app and take us anywhere. In the car, at work, or at the game. Live audio, video, and podcasts on your schedule. The Jocks 94.5 app, wherever you may be.
Jim Rome takes on sports.
I will always have a complicated relationship with this game, but people evolve. So do sports. Do not make me regret this. Do not make me devolve back to that guy that so many clones wish that I still was. And do not embarrass the entire country. Now, I can go back. I can get there fast. Lose tonight, and you got a real problem. Do not blow it.
The Jim Rome Show podcast.
You've been warned.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
The United States Soccer Federation presents the U.S. Soccer Podcast.
I'm your host, Megan Klingerberg. One thing I promised you is an all-access pass that you wouldn't get on any other show. And we found out that whoever comes on scores a goal. Burhope, Freeman, Trusty. U.S. Soccer Podcast magic is real, people. We still got plenty of coverage all throughout this World Cup. Okay, let's get into it.
The U.S. Soccer Podcast, presented by Henkel. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.